This post right here out of the 2X chromosome subreddit is precisely why I am on team let the birth rate plummet to hell. It is also the reason why I am so supportive of the Childfree movement and the 4B movement. It is because women are not supported as parents. Mothers are not supported or cared for in this culture, in this world. We're not. And because of that, people see how frazzled mothers are, how stressed mothers are, because we take on too much. And she said, just realize the real reason I don't want kids. She goes through this long post, but even as a mother, I recognize all of these things. I definitely recognize all of these things. And until these things start to improve, I do not believe this world, this country, we don't deserve more children until mothers and children are supported. But let's get into her post. All right, she says, hear me out. This may be long and confusing because I am ranting. Seeing exhausted parents, especially and disproportionately moms, has literally radicalized me. People play it off as a joke. They say stuff like, good luck. I barely slept longer than a few hours per night for months, ignoring the fact that sleep deprivation can take years off your life and is acutely dangerous. I can't go to the bathroom in peace. I had to give my kid an iPad just to be able to eat lunch. They laugh about it and in the same breath ask you, when are you planning on having kids? What? Hello? And I am just the opposite. I tell all this, but I do not push any woman to have kids at all. Is something not completely wrong with how we're going about parenting? Why are we pretending this is normal? Two parents, sometimes just one, raising an entire human by themselves with maybe the help of a grandparent or aunt a few hours a week, on top of having entire jobs. Come to find out, we are not supposed to be living like this, and it is completely opposite to how little humans are supposed to be raised. The nuclear family is a modern concept that never should have existed. We should be living in villages wherein kids play amongst other kids all day and have many different caretakers, up to 18 different adults in a day, tending to their needs. Mothers even breastfed babies who aren't their own to help other mothers if they need to take a break or need to sleep. Compare that to today. In the beginning, parents are the sole caregivers to a tiny growing thing that has 24/7 needs. The baby needs feedings constantly and throughout the night. Parents barely get a few hours of sleep for months, but they also need to work in order to have food and shelter, the costs of which have increased astronomically. Daycare, anyone? At this particular juncture, drop how much you're paying or did pay for daycare. Once the baby gets a little older, it's the same, but now parents have to be playmates. Our adult brains are not set up for play. This makes us more tired, and kids end up on an iPad. Children having siblings doesn't help as much as you think because it's been proven that non-related children make better playmates, as related siblings will compete for parents' attention. Trying to socialize, especially with people who don't have kids, is a struggle. Parents often end up losing friends and a robust social life that is so essential to mental health. So they are exhausted, broke, anxious, and honestly, most of all, lonely. It seems to me such a lonely existence. You can opt to go the more difficult route and raise your family in an intentional commune, but this is non-traditional, and there is a palpable fear of judgment from the rest of society that prevents most from even being aware of that choice. There's a lot to say in the way of financial struggles, climate change, fears of societal collapse, women not wanting to risk their health and bodies, etc. And those are all valid reasons that I have as well. But I think at the crux of it all is the devastating loss of a village. All for the nuclear family that was developed to further capitalism and the patriarchy, which is a different rant for another time. I am so sad I was born in this specific time period because maybe I would actually want a family if society was a little different. or if I was a man. That is also a different rant for another time. If y'all want to hear more about this, Elena Bridgers on TikTok and IG talks about all of this in depth, and I very much credit her for my radicalization. Before I had kids, I thought all women wanted to have kids. The whole child-free movement wasn't that big. People really didn't talk about not having kids. So I just thought most women wanted to have kids. A few people here and there would say that they didn't want to. And I was just like, I think she'll change her mind. I think he'll change his mind. After having kids, after going through the whole sleep deprivation and healing and all of the, like she said, having to carry the baby all the places, not being able to use the bathroom by myself, all of that. I had babies in a place where I had no support system. I was hundreds of miles away from both sides of my family. So life was definitely challenging. And many people are going through these exact same things, having to figure out, okay, can I even afford to put my children in childcare? Is it worth it? Am I going to make enough money to counteract the cost of daycare? And all of that is so many things that you have to put in place. And right now, the political climate says, no. Hang back, because this world doesn't deserve to have kids as it currently set up. The way they don't appreciate humans, let alone mothers and children. So that is definitely going to be a whole nother rant. But I do want you to chime in. Her layout, I hadn't completely read it all, and I was going to talk about the patriarchy and capitalism, and that's the reason for the nuclear family. But she already did that. She enumerated everything. This woman, I like her. Anyways, join in, but let's look at a couple of these comments. Tiny Zane says, couldn't agree more. This model of parenting is very culturally specific too. The expectation for most families in Western style society is for both parents to work, rely on paid childcare, with grandparents only occasionally chipping in to help. The emphasis really is getting back to work. But for many cultures at many points in history, this was not the norm. They say it takes a village to raise a child for a reason. Sadly, many people have lost their villages in modern society. I, for one, do not have a village. Periodically, not even periodically, like 4 times I've had a babysitter to be able to even have a date. We don't have a village. But, we chose to have children in a place where we didn't have much family. So that is the life. And it's not for everybody. Eloise first says, and then we wonder why mental health issues are skyrocketing. No one is actually raising their children, not because they are parents, but because no one can raise their children. Because people have to work. So that means that that's time away from your kids. And then there's all the other things that go along with parenting. But the main thing is you have to go to work. I don't know how people get around this. There's no support system and everything is so expensive. Miss Schuster says, and on top of that, our brains are filled with microplastics. Yes, we got rid of almost all the lead exposure, which fried the boomer brains, and a ton of particulate emissions, but there's so much other pollution and contamination going on, and that's just the Western standards. In the third world, the situation is sometimes even worse than in Britain mid-industrialization. Ursinza says this both can work full-time is a convenient lie told by capitalists, so our whole culture is almost impossible by realistic standards. I say it's possible to work 60 in some, 50 would be preferable to have a comfortable life. Barrick says, don't forget the way of raising kids these days is also different and very emotionally taxing. You're supposed to talk through and reason with an unreasonable person. When my 2 kids were little, it felt at times like I'm negotiating with terrorists. I still remember the emotional exhaustion. I once thought, how could women manage with 6 or 7 kids in the olden days? But then I remembered that they would spank an unreasonable kid and be done. Yes, spanking and physical discipline. I think this is a great discussion, very valid points being made. I do want you to chime in. Do you have kids? Do you relate to this? Do you not have kids, not want kids, and relate to these? I am all for women being able to make choices, informed choices, not choices pushed by society or tradition or whatever. Join the conversation. Let me know what you think about all of this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.